Hello and welcome to Campus Close-Up. I'm your host, Erin Wall, and in this episode, I'll be discussing on-campus living with Gina Vance. Gina, thanks so much for coming.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Now, throughout this little program, we're going to be discussing a lot about, RAs and RDs. So, just to clarify for everyone, what exactly is an RA? What is an RD? What do they do?
Good question. And I'm going to throw you for a loop because there's another category in there that we have on campus too, which is called a CA. But an RA is a resident assistant. It's an undergraduate student. So they've gone through a selection process. Once they're selected, then we train them over the August prior to the start of the school year on a wide variety of things. But what RAs do for the students in the halls that they live in is first and foremost build community. What we hope that they're doing is reaching out to every student on the floor on which they live. Every RA has somewhere between 25 and 30 students that they're responsible for. And so we're hoping that they're building relationships with 25 to 30 students, knowing them well enough to know when they're not doing well, when they're doing well, what they need, what they like, how to connect them with other students on the floor. When they're not doing that, other things, administrative kinds of things that they have to do is programming. The part that they don't always like is the policy enforcement piece, and yes, that is part of their responsibility. But it is an essential part of keeping a community running, keeping the building safe, and keeping it an environment where students can really focus on themselves and their learning experience and not be distracted by things that aren't necessarily safe or healthy.
So what exactly are some of the dorm policies? I know that there are some in place. Now, if you could just clarify those.
There are many. And usually during orientation, I do about a 20 to 30 minute session for students, and we just pretty much go through the residence life portion of the handbook because there are so many and there are nuances that I think are important. But I think some that I would highlight, maybe those that are typically misunderstood or typically violated. First is our alcohol policy. We are a dry campus. The policy is that there is to be no alcohol on campus, and particularly in the residence halls. So that is regardless of age. Visitation is a big one too. We have open visitation and limited visitation options on campus. Although in my time here, we have had truly all open visitation across campus. Our open visitation does allow opposite gender guests to be in each other's rooms on the weekends, so starting Friday night and Saturday night, and then we go back to a more limited visitation on the weekdays. Clock is when visitation officially begins, if we use Monday as our start date for the week. Beginning at 11 a.m. in the morning, visitors may go into students' rooms. They may be there until 11:59, so in essence midnight, but 11:59 p.m. on Monday night, and that same time frame holds true Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, visitation opens at 11 o'clock, so visitors may show up at 11 a.m., and then it's open until Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So that's, all night Friday night, all day Saturday, all night Saturday night, and into Sunday that it stays open. Now, all of our lobbies, lounges, our ground floor spaces have 24-hour viz. And that's 7 days a week. The reason for that is because we are an academic institution, and the reality is students study well after midnight. So visitation may end at 11:59 p.m. We want to make sure that there is a space on campus that students can be safe and study. It's not intended to be an overnight space. It is really intended to be for study groups, for, those kinds of things. So.
And with the visitation comes the escort policy, if you would like to go over that for me.
Yep, escort policy is a door-to-door policy. And that means that all of our buildings are locked, and so our guests cannot get into the building unless they're let in. So our hope is with cell phone coverage now, most students are using cell phone, is that if a guest arrives at the front door of a building, he or she calls whoever they're planning to visit. That person comes down to the door, escorts them from the time they get into the building up to the room, wherever they are in the building. If they have to use the public restroom, they should escort them down to the public restroom.